Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is a special council meeting, 16-17, regarding zoning bylaw. At this time, I call upon Mr. Longfellow to lead us in the national anthem.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all thy sons' command. Car ton bras se porte l'épée, il se porte la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée de plus brillant exploit. God keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you very much, Joel. We appreciate that once again.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
At this time, I entertain the motion to confirm the agenda. Moved by Councillor Bodner, seconded by Councillor Damaris. All those in favor? Carried. Are there any disclosures of interest this evening? There be none, that shall be so indicated. Next is again, we're dealing with a public hearing under the Planning Act on a proposed new draft City of Port Colborne comprehensive zoning bylaw. Planning and Development Planning Division, report number 2017-94. Again, the subject of public meeting. Report of proposed new draft comprehensive zoning bylaw. Mr. Aquilina, are you going to lead us in this discussion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening to you, members of council, staff, and those in attendance this evening. The purpose of this meeting is pursuant to Section 34 of the Planning Act. As mentioned, is to consider a new comprehensive citywide zoning bylaw for the municipality. I will present the details of the amendment when I present the Planning Public Information Report. I think it's important to know that the zoning bylaw is 35 years old. It was adopted, passed in 1982. The method of the meeting tonight, Mr. Mayor, was given in accordance with Section 34 of the Planning Act and Section 5 of Ontario Regulation 545/06. We placed the notice within the Port Colborne Leader on May the 18th, 2017, and it's been no secret that the municipality is looking towards completing this citywide zoning bylaw. We've advertised, we've indicated it on our website, we've had it in our newsletter, so it's been no secret that this is the goal that the municipality is looking to have completed. So what I'll do, Mr. Mayor, is I will present Planning and Development Report 2017/94. We will then allow members of council to ask myself any questions if they so choose. We will then open the meeting up to members of the public if they wish to address council. And then I will present the next steps regarding this new comprehensive zoning bylaw. And I'll give a brief explanation of the next steps of that. So if I could, Mr. Mayor, this is our proposed zoning bylaw. I have a brief PowerPoint presentation that will go over the public information report. And I think it's important to know, as I mentioned, this replaces a 1982 City of Port Colborne bylaw that has over 400 site-specific amendments. And so what staff have proposed to do is put together a document that actually ensures compliance with the city's official plan. That is what the zoning bylaw does. The policies that the official plan states are great for policy direction, but the zoning bylaw is the teeth that implements those policies. It's a legal document. And it's no secret that council's aware that what the zoning bylaw does, it dictates the use of land, where the buildings have to be placed, what the lot coverage requirements are, parking requirements, height of buildings, et cetera, and the important thing that council should be aware of and know, it actually dictates what land use is allowed in a zone that you're located within. Whether it be commercial, we have some commercial zones, highway commercial, downtown commercial, marine commercial. There's a residential. We have first density residential, second density, third density, fourth density. We deal with the hamlet areas of the municipality, institutional areas, park areas. It's very comprehensive that dictates, as I mentioned, land use. That's the key, land use. So the authority of the zoning bylaw is under Section 34 of the Planning Act is to ensure, again, compliance with the official plan and ensures that we respect the provincial policies that are before us. And what it does, it allows us to administer the zoning bylaw with respect to those uses, densities, coverages, different requirements of the development of the municipality. And the one thing I would like to mention before I would like to show is these are my two props for this evening. This is the 1982 zoning bylaw schedule A1. And as you can see, sorry for the loudness, you will see it's done in ink on Mylar. And one of the challenges that staff has, and I will slide to that later on in the slide, there's my other prop, we had to use, and we do use still, an actual metric scale to determine the different areas of properties that are zoned. Because some of the challenges that we see, and I'll forward to that, is that because the mapping wasn't done on a very parcel by parcel basis, it was based on the assessment maps of the municipality. And staff that created this document over 35 years ago had to do the best of their ability to actually put the zone boundaries along property lines. You would think they did that, but the reality is a lot of times they didn't. So we were actually faced with pulling out the scale and measuring what the scale was on the map to where the actual zone boundary was, and then determine, was that property in an institutional zone or was it residential? So we had to make a determination to the best of our ability, but at the end of the day, we had to refer to what that map said. We couldn't really interpret it any other way. So the days of the ruler are over with. So I'm happy to say, and I will show you what that does. But going back to the official plan itself, what the mapping will also show is the actual current and existing mapping, whether it's environmental areas, quarry lands, and what it did enabled us to actually develop more clear terminology. So a lack of interpretation is not there. It actually enforces what that use could be. And I would like to acknowledge Mrs. LaRocque is here this evening. Planning staff, this is a made in Port Colborne document. So planning staff were very instrumental in completing this. Mrs. LaRocque, Mrs. Richardson, and myself spent a lot of time over the last 2 years creating this document, which we hope will achieve Port Colborne's vision for development. The other thing as well, what the document will do, it will enforce and ensure that we respect all of the provincial legislation, whether it's the Planning Act, obviously, but also under the human rights. We got to be sure that we cannot discriminate based on gender, based on whether or not you're low income. We can't discriminate. We can't say that it only can be used for people that are old. We can't do that no more. So that's gone. The bylaw itself respects people's rights under the human rights. We've reduced the R word. It was there. It's no longer going to be there. So we've ensured that that actually is in compliance as well. What we've also done, we've recognized new uses to allow on different properties. We've respected, again, the provincial policies. When we talk about intensification, we've allowed in the R2 second density zone, which only allowed previously a single family home. We've now allowed someone to develop a semi-detached dwelling, get more residential use on that land. So as I mentioned, respecting the official plan, this is our land use schedule. It directs where growth is to be. We have industrial, we see there's commercial, agricultural, and rural lands. And so, again, this is what I showed, I illustrated an excerpt. Here's a 1982 schedule. That's what it looks like today under the Mylar. You see there's some site-specific amendments that staff had to actually use pen and ink to create new zone. And again, here is the scale that I was referring to. So you can imagine it could be very inaccurate, I would say, for lack of a better word. You're doing the best you can based on parcel information, on assessment map information. It's not based on any sort of computer automated parcel information, but now it will be, as you will see on the next slide. And you can see right here what we'll show you is the actual, this is the draft schedule. This, what we did, we overlaid this on top of an air photo. This is a 2010 photo, but it gave us some recognition of what was there from a land use perspective. And you can see then, we see the roads, and we can actually draw the zone boundaries along property lines, where in the past, it wasn't done. And again, here's the clean map that just shows it without the air photography. And you can see, again, it follows property lines and street lines. Here's another dog's breakfast that I'm going to show you. This was Schedule A3, and this property is for Shirkston Shores. You can see the RR-161, and if you look lower, because there were some Ontario Municipal Board decisions, Council then had to pass specific bylaws, and so in order for us to actually know what the zone boundaries were and what they meant, we had to actually pull the bylaw of the schedule of the passage of those bylaws to look. And this kind of shows you the different bylaws that I had a student allow us the ability to find property information more quickly. And here's where we've drafted today. You can see it shows us a lot more information. We respect the environmental features on the property, the woodlots, there's some wetlands, and again, we recognize the floodplain mapping along the Lake Erie shoreline, the wave uprush, and we can actually determine the zone boundaries. You take the cemetery, for example. We actually could see where the cemetery is because we now know where it is. Again, this mapping here shows us the different schedules that we've created. Schedule A is the overall map that shows us the different schedules. So we go from Schedule A1 all the way to Schedule A8. Again, each section of the municipality is in quadrants, and you will see the next mapping will show us the different schedules. This is Schedule A1. I'm not going to go over the details of each schedule, but if any member of council has any questions, I'll be gladly happy to answer. This is the agricultural area of the municipality. This is land that is north of Highway 3 and 2nd Concession Road. This one here is Schedule A2. You'll see it's land that goes from the canal all the way to the east of where Jaeger Road is. And you'll see, you can't really see that great, but you'll see we've respected the Ontario Municipal Board decision for Nyon Oil. So we've ensured that the bylaw is still in place that requires all the holding provisions there. And so that has not changed. So we've just rolled that into the draft bylaw. And you can see all those changes with the environmental mapping. We have to respect the fact that some of the lands on the Ion site are a provincially significant wetland, so we've identified that. This land now is the southeast section of the municipality. You'll see the quarry for Shirkston Shores, and this is all the way up to second concession. And the other thing we've done, we actually show the municipal drains on the property, on the schedule. So we've labeled those, and that's good for the municipality, so we can determine, oh, you actually have a drain going through your property, and as well, the residents will be able to see, oh, they have the drain, and they'll know what drain that is. Schedule A4. Land's just westerly. Schedule A5, you'll see to the northwest corner, we recognize the quarry is sitting there, all the way to this Lake Erie shoreline. Next schedule is Schedule A6. From the canal, easterly to Reuter Road. But the quarry to the north, Lake Erie shoreline, the valet lands to the south, and the lands by the federal government. Now here's just a clean version to see what the mapping is for Schedule A7. That's where we're sitting right now. The downtown is recognized in there, and we can see all the way to the west with Westwood Estates subdivision is sitting there, south of Main Street and right to the township of Wainfleet. This is the map, Schedule A8, that's lands that are north of Main Street, right from the canal to the township boundary. And again, this is a clean version that on our website, we actually have PDFs of all these land use schedules that you could see, and it's a little more clear than this PowerPoint presentation. And you can zoom in, and if this gets passed, it will all be available online. So we held an open house on March 30th, 2017. That was advertised. Again, it was known that we were doing that. We had over 25 participants, which was pretty good. Staff from planning were there answering the questions. It was good turnout. It's a good turnout. And what that has done, it has led to other questions, comments, and we have been addressing each one of those, and we've made changes to the draft bylaw, and that'll be reflective in what we bring forward to council. So the door is always open. Emails are always available for any sort of further comment. We take all those emails into account, and we'll bring that forward to council. If we need to make the necessary changes, we will do that. So the next steps is, again, we'll open the floor up this evening to members of the public if they wish to address council. Again, make the necessary changes where appropriate, and then we will bring that back to council for consideration. We've received a few comments, Mr. Mayor, I just would like to mention this evening. The agency comments that we received only from the Niagara District School Board. They have no objection because their lands are recognized as institutional. They have no concerns. The only other comment of objection was through Mr. Rivers on behalf of the owner of 360 Kalali Street East. They object to the institutional zoning being changed to R2 residential. And that is a easy comment to address. Change it. We got no reason why it should stay institutional. No, that we don't feel it should stay, that we feel it shouldn't be institutional. It shouldn't be, it's still being used as institutional. It's an oversight that we thought it was a residential property. So very quick change, but we'll capture that. The last comment that was of objection was from the owner of the Taco subdivision. What I had proposed was to remove all of the zoning that was on place for that property And so the property owners would like to request that the zoning be brought back into the new bylaw because it was something that council had addressed in 2011, but because it had lapsed, council wanted the subdivision to go away. So I then removed the zoning, but the property owner would like to have consideration of that because they feel that the environmental features that were recognized on the property, there was no support for council to change and put the environmental features on the property. And as I mentioned, they want to actually have all the former land use allowed because they had proposed higher density apartments, townhouses, and then they had some single family. So that was the other comment that we'll need to address as to why we should or why council shouldn't approve the zoning for that property. And Mr. Mayor, that pretty much concludes my public information report. And I'll open it up if any member of council or yourself has any questions to myself. I'll be happy to answer.
Are there any questions or clarification from council to planning staff? Mr. Demery.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Dan. Dan, I had a question actually forwarded to me today from someone who was looking at tiny houses and that form of living on Facebook and asked me how our zoning changes would impact that. And I quickly looked through and I could see easily maximum sizes for things, but I couldn't see any minimum sizes. Do we have minimum sizes for houses, for homes that people would live in?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Demery, we used to have requirements in the bylaw for minimum lot size. Mrs. LaRock, did we put that for minimums? So you go to R1 or R2 zone. I don't recall that. Well, we will confirm that.
There was also actually minimum lot size and minimum dwelling size. That was the other.
No, Mrs. LaRock confirms there's no minimum floor area.
Perfect. I could at least answer that part. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions from members of council? There being none, move on to oral presentations.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I'd like to read this statement before we open the floor up to those members of the public.
Yes, Mr. Quillen, go ahead.
If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the City of Port Colborne before the proposed comprehensive zoning bylaw is approved, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of the City of the Port Colborne to the Ontario Municipal Board. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the city before the proposed comprehensive zoning bylaw is approved, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the OMB unless, in the opinion of the board, there are reasonable grounds to add the person or public body as a party.
Thank you, Mr. Aquilina. So now we'll move on to if there are people who wish to speak, but first of all, I'll just read this out that the following list of delegates that as of 12 noon today have registered to speak at the June 12, 2017 Special Council and Committee of the Whole meeting. Delegations are permitted 10 minutes in which to make their presentation. We have oral presentations and questions indicated from the public by Mr. William Gordon and Mr. Doug Darbison. I'm not sure whether they are together or separately. And your name, sir? Doug Garbison. You're Doug Garbison? Yes, sir. And Mr. Gordon? Okay, you both will have one presentation. Okay, that's for a period of 10 minutes. During a public meeting, delegations are also permitted from the floor, as anyone else here in the body of the council chambers. And I'll open up the floor to receive those delegates at the appropriate time. But right now, if we could hear from Mr. Darbison. Could you come forward, sir, and to the podium? There's a red light, which is already pressed.
Okay.
You've already pressed it, or it's already pressed for you, so go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, ladies and gentlemen, staff, I'm a planner, and I do represent Mr. Gordon this evening. Mr. Gordon has a property in Port Colborne. A building is presently under construction. The building is located at 970 Empire Road at the corner of Highway 3 and Empire Road. And this building is currently under construction under the existing zoning bylaw. The existing zoning bylaw under agriculture permits specifically a farm machinery sales and service establishment. My concern on behalf of Mr. Gordon is that the new bylaw will eliminate that use and make, rather than having a as-of-right legal use, the new bylaw actually will make this property legal, non-conforming use. So it changes the status of the property, and it's, in a way, it's down-zoning the property. So I appreciate what Mr. Aquilina did say, that there's a process to bring forward some recommendations to council. I would hope that this particular use would be allowed to continue on this property because a building permit has been issued under the previous zone category, and we would like to continue that type of use and possibly expand it into the future. So if the council would see fit to ensure that that one use continues on the property, we would be very pleased with that. And thank you very much.
Any members of council have a question? The applicant. That's it, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Yes. Hold on, sir. Mr. Bader.
Just through you to Dan. Dan, how do we deal with this request then?
Through Mr. Mayor to Councilor Bodnar, we'll take it under consideration. The reason that we removed farm machinery and sales and service, it's an old use that doesn't really exist anymore. So council will have to make a decision whether or not if they want to include that use as a agricultural or rural use. We just feel it's an outdated definition.
Okay, so when do we have that discussion though? I mean,
Through Mr. Mayor to Councilor Bonner, as Mr. Darberson had mentioned, we will talk again, and then eventually we will bring forward a recommendation report highlighting Mr. Darberson's issue, and then in the recommendation report, we will make a determination based upon whether or not we agree with Mr. Darberson or we respectfully disagree. So then through that report, council will have to make a decision which side you are on.
okay.
We have a question from Mrs. Butters.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Dan. So does this in any way hold up the continued construction of that building?
So you, Mr. Mayor to Councilor Butters, no, it does not, because he actually has the building permit to construct a current use under the bylaws, farm machinery and sales. He will be able to continue to do that if and when the actual construction is completed, and then if a building permit is submitted, and if there's an amendment to the site plan agreement, then they would require a variance of the bylaw to expand the non-conforming use. That would be something that would be before the Committee of Adjustment.
So if I could just go one step further. So right now, what is permitted for use for that building once it's complete? Right now?
Through Mr. Mayor, it is permitted for farm machinery sales and service.
Okay.
So it's got to be farm equipment, farm machinery,
Okay.
and you're allowed to service it.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? There being none, thank you, sir. Okay, at this time, we've heard from the registered delegates. Is there anyone in the body of the council chambers that would like to address the zoning bylaw? Yes, sir. Could you come forward and give us your name and address?
Harry Wells. I live at
Could you come up to the podium, Mr. Wells?
Hi, my name is Harry Wells. I reside at 548 Highway 3, Port Colborne.
Thank you.
Harry Wells. I reside at Highway 3, 548 in Port Colborne, and I have done a preliminary review of the proposed comprehensive zoning bylaw and found some minor errors and concerns, and then some major concerns that I have with it. For example, I found a minor problem with some of the typing and the errors that are in there, and since this is a legal document, it's very important that all the details are covered. And we all know the devil is in the details. For example, on page 11, section 2.4D, there's a word used called even. And in actuality, that word is supposed to be event, and it deals with party tents, where party tents are supposed to be located and when an event is being carried on. So these types of details need to be looked at from a minor perspective so that the bylaw can be implemented properly and that it's consistent with the city's official plan. So this bylaw needs to be free of the small errors that could become significant. The title of this bylaw is a comprehensive zoning bylaw, and that implies that it should be comprehending, include everything, and understandable. To that, I found it to lack sufficient detail and definitions in certain areas. For example, section 26, light industrial, bullet L. It uses terms like obnoxious, dangerous, and offensive to describe uses that would not be allowed or included in the bylaw. But then when you read further on, these terms are not included in the definitions of the bylaw. Adjectives and terms that are subjective in nature need to be defined to ensure clear understanding and enforceability of this bylaw. In section 26 and 27, there is a defined separation distance for sensitive land use for medical marijuana production facilities of 150 meters, but not for any other heavy industries, even though the Ministry of the Environment guidelines call for a minimum separations of 300 meters for heavy industry. This bylaw needs to be consistent with other regulations, and I appreciate that the city expects the ministry and other regulators to be consulted and their regulations and guidelines adhered to under this jurisdiction, but we cannot, as a city, pass the responsibility on unless the city takes ownership and ensures compliance through this bylaw. One of my major concerns is the low level of detailed requirements for mineral aggregate operations. That industry consumes a large portion of this city's lands and is a welcoming eye feature for anybody entering from the west, from the north, or from the east. So anybody coming into the city basically has to pass one of the quarries. In particular, there is no requirement for rehabilitation in this bylaw. The Niagara Region Aggregate Resource Act and even the city's official plan recognizes the importance for rehabilitation of mineral aggregate operations. So why isn't it addressed in the bylaw? It is my position that this bylaw is lacking and needs more work to be truly comprehensive before it is adopted. Thank you, Mayor, Council, staff.
Do we have any questions to Mr. Wells? There being none, thank you, Mr. Wells.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Are there any other individuals in the body could come forward, sir, and give us your name and address?
My name is Ron Saxon. I live at 640 2nd Concession Road. I think most of what I hear about is already taken care of in existing zoning, but I didn't want to give up my right to talk later on the new bylaws. That's all. That's all I wanted, is to get notification on if it changes.
Okay, so you have no real questions on the existing?
Well, I have a question, but I think they'd all be done under the existing one. When you go online, one says 1%, one says 3%, but I think that's all worked out, so I just don't want to give up my right to speak later if things go awry, that's all.
Okay.
They can
For the record, does any
Yeah,
member
just for the record.
of council want
Yeah.
to ask Mr. Sexton a question? Thank you,
That's
sir.
it. Thank you.
Yep. Is there anyone else in the body of the council chambers that wishes to make a comment? Ask once again, is there anyone else in the body of the council who wishes to make a representation? There being none, Mr. Aquilina?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The next steps that are going to be taken this evening are we will listen to those comments that we have heard. We'll address them in the recommendation report. Council will then have to make a determination, as I mentioned, about what the proposed zoning bylaw, how it will read. So we got time to address those, and we won't bring it back to council unless we're in a position to actually be supportive of what we're proposing to do. So saying that, Mr. Mayor, I would like to state the following. If you wish to be notified of the approval of the comprehensive zoning bylaw, you must make a written request to the city clerk. Only those persons in public bodies that give the clerk a written request for the notice of adoption and passage of the bylaw will be given such notice. We have a sign-in sheet at the back of the room. If you wish to sign that, you will ensure that you will receive notice of council's anticipated approval. What we do is we will even inform you when council is considering that document, so you'll receive that ahead of time. So that concludes this meeting under the Planning Act, Mr. Mayor. As I mentioned, it'll be something that we'll bring forward to council through a recommendation report. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Saxon, make sure before you leave tonight, if you could sign this notice that Mr. Aquilina was just referring to. Mr. Wells could probably assist you. Okay, at this time I've called for a motion for adjournment. Moved by Councilor Dan, seconded by Councilor Doucette, that we now adjourn the meeting. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. That meeting is adjourned. The next meeting I'm calling to order right now. Madam Clerk, are there any addendum and delegation items?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's one addendum item this evening. That's the addition of item 21, being Community and Corporate Services, Community Services Division Report 2017-101, with regard to Moonlight Flicks at H.H. Knoll Lakeview Park.
Thank you. I entertain a motion to confirm the agenda. Moved by Councilor Kennedy, seconded by Councilor Desmarais, that the agenda be confirmed. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Are there any disclosures of interest tonight on the agenda items? There being none, that shall be some recorded. Thank you. Call for a motion to adopt the minutes of the regular meeting of the Committee of the Whole 13-17 held on May 23rd, 2017. Moved by Councilor Bodner, seconded by Councilor Kenny. All those in favor? Carried. At this time, we'd move on to the determination of items requiring separate discussion. Okay. I have a quick question as an individual regarding the addendum item number 21, Mr. Patrick Gagliardi, who's an event organizer. Is he in attendance as we speak? No one has indicated that they're Patrick Gagliardi. We'll perhaps come back to that at the end of this exercise. Members of council, do we have any items requiring separate discussion? Councilor Kenny?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 1, 3, 11, and 21.
Slow down, please. Number 1 through 11?
And 21. No.
On 21, is it because it says lifted?
Yeah, I want to speak to it.
You do want to speak? Okay, she does want to speak. Yeah.
And 21. Any other items from members of council? Councilor Rodner.
Item 5, Mr. Mayor.
Anything else, sir? Calling one last time, are there any other items for discussion? At this time, I call for a motion to approve those items not requiring separate discussion. Moved by Councilor Demeray, seconded by Councilor Butters. All those in favor? Carried. We have a presentation this evening. Could Mr. Dave Zazella and Brian Campbell from Molson's come forward along with Nancy and Dave Salvage?
Are you going to be on there too? I'm going to need to get a picture of this for social media.
Okay.
You got a duck, Dave.
He really upset.
David, could you,
Yes.
the red button there, please.
Mayor Maloney, members of council, city staff, and citizens of Port Colborne. My name is Dave Zazella, for those of you who don't know me, but you've probably seen me running around the city of Port Colborne over the last 16 years for tall ships and canal days, and we'll be doing the same in a month from now. It's my distinct honor and pleasure to be here with you tonight to honor two of the many people within this community who have demonstrated great Canadian character. Molson Canadian looks at those who stand for great Canadian character, including connection with our community, breaking down borders, and bringing people together. Class, in holding ourselves to the highest standards in everything we do. Celebration, through living with joie de vivre and celebrating the best of life. Commitment, through the determination to go extra lengths even when it seems impossible. And contribution by leaving things better than when we found them. During Canada's 150th birthday year, Molson Canadian and Molson Coors, are celebrating Canada's oldest brewery and reflect upon the words of our founder John Molson, who stated that we are all members of a larger community which depends on everyone playing a part. Molson has created these commemorative wooden crates. There are 1,500 of these across the country. And it's my pleasure to present Nancy and Dave Salvage from your community, Port Colborne, with these commemorative crates. We thank them for their service to this community as Canadians who represent great Canadian character. Thank you. Congratulations.
Are they full, Dave? Dave, are they full?
What's that?
Are they full?
Can I say there is some Molson Canadian stubbies. The
Okay,
collector
okay.
stubbies in there.
Oh, yeah. Neat.
Oh, wow.
And there's all kind of heritage stuff and yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Nice.
And the beer should be underneath.
Now this is wonderful.
Yeah.
This just got better, eh? Oh, my goodness.
Could you all come forward in front of the wheel here, and the press will like to take a photo? Sure.
Yeah, I'd just like to say, though, that Port Colborne's got a wonderful record of volunteerism. There's well over 600 people in this city that you could call on to get help and to volunteer for any of the programs you do here. So to actually be selected out of those is an honor and kind of humbling.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
We
I'm going to
appreciate
accept
that.
this for. Yeah, I'm going to accept this for all the volunteers.
Yeah.
So, party at my house. Thank you very much.
And can I just say, because I always have to get my bit in, thank you to Molson's for using the opportunity of the Canada's 150th birthday to honor volunteers across the country, because volunteering is what makes us great. I truly believe that. So thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Dave, you want to grab one of those?
Your latest.
Those are nice.
First leg up. Sure. Let's see if the open right in front. Like this under. There you go. She got me. Thanks. We're good? Yep. Thank you very much. Thank you. Congratulations again. Congratulations. See you around 9:30.
Yeah.
Make sure that opener works.
Yeah. Thank you. Little study.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to call upon a delegation of Emily Dockrell-Jones and Brian Hayslip to discuss the Canada 150 celebration activities in Port Colborne, including the opening of the timber cabin at the museum grounds.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and councillors, and welcome to everyone else as well, for the time this evening to share our exciting lineup for Port Colborne Heritage Day's My Canada Matters opening ceremonies, and many of you have our lovely formal invitation, will be held on June 20th at the museum, along with the dedication of the timber frame cabin that Brian will talk about. June 21st is National Aboriginal Day, featuring a drum performance and native art displays at Roselawn. The Quilt and Stitchery Guild prepared beautiful handmade 150 themed placemats for Meals on Wheels participants here in the city, and they'll present those on June 22nd at the Port Colborne Hospital. June 23rd, we're opening the Centennial Pool time capsule that was buried 50 years ago and celebrating 50 years of swimming in Port Colborne. That's at the Valet Centre. June 24th is a double bill. We have St. Jean-Baptiste Day celebrations at Le Centre des Années Francophones and Art Crawl in downtown Port Colborne. June 25th, we have a sand sculpture demonstration and family fun day at Nickel Beach. So our sand sculptor will give a demonstration and then give people tips on how to build their own sand masterpieces. So we really hope people will come out for an enjoyable day on our shore. The Quilt and Stitchery Guild also prepared a Canada 150 themed quilt, which they're presenting to council at the meeting on June 26th. Also on June 26th, Pay As You Play Zumba will be Canada 150 themed and will be just $1.50 for the class. June 27th is another doubleheader with the Outspoken Heritage Slow Ride. It's a leisurely bike ride on a heritage route through Port Colborne. And then there's a free concert by the Niagara Memorial Militaires Alumni Drum Corps at the Bandshell at H.H. Knoll Park. Arabella's Tea Room invites you to afternoon tea on June 28th for the bargain sesquicentennial rate of just $1.50 per person. June 29th features 150 themed yoga again at the Sugarloaf Marina Pavilion, just $1.50 for either the morning or the evening class, or both if you really want to come out and celebrate. The Canadian Corps is hosting a New Year's Eve style countdown on June 30th, so from 7 to midnight, and they'll actually feature a countdown to Canada Day. And of course, the Optimist Club is once again hosting their Canada Day celebrations, but this year there's some extra activities because it marks the end of our Heritage Day celebration. Most events are free other than the few that are $1.50, and all are open to the public, so you don't need a formal invitation. We invite, in fact, we really hope people participate. Complete details are on the city website under the Canada 150 Heritage Days page or on the Port Colborne Canada 150 Facebook page, facebook.com/PC Canada 150. And I just want to take a moment here to thank everyone who's helped make Heritage Days possible, including the local organizations and businesses who hosted events or provided prizes for volunteers and participants. And I'd especially like to thank the committee. They started well over a year ago, well before I came into the picture in February, and they've truly been the driving force behind the initiative. So Donna Abbott, Tanya Ace, Jeff Jeff Bowden, Angie Demaray, Nancy Giles, Raquel Leger, Gina Murdoch, Janet Pilon, Stephanie Powell-Baswick, and Marcia Turner have been invaluable. And of course, thanks again to you, Mr. Mayor, and to Council for your support, and to City staff for all of their assistance. We look forward to celebrating Port Colborne's heritage and Canada's sesquicentennial with everyone, so we hope people will come out.
Thank you, Emily. Brian?
I asked to be part of this presentation this evening for two reasons. First of all, of course, the grand opening or dedication of our new historical timber cabin at the museum. That's been an item in our strategic plan at the museum for over 20 years. The actual build is now a culmination of a lot of effort, a lot of volunteer time and expense for over 5 years. So we're very pleased to be able to invite everyone to attend on June the 20th, the dedication of the timber cabin in Port Colborne as our 150th Canada Anniversary project. The second thing that I would like to mention tonight is that as chairman of the board of directors of the Port Colborne Museum, I would like to thank the mayor, council, and all of city staff for their extraordinary support over the last period. Their cooperation and assistance in this project has been just terrific, and I think it should be on record. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Heaslip. Do we have any questions from members of the council? Would appear not. Thank you very much for your presentation this evening. Would you have a list of all the events that are Canada 150 involved that were available to the public?
They're on the city website.
Okay.
On our Heritage Days page, and they're also on our, there's events set up on the Facebook page as well.
Okay.
If you want my copy.
Thank you. At this time, it's ready for the mayor's report. I'm going to be rather brief, but I would like to draw attention to West Nile virus. Warmer temperatures are here, and with them come the onset of West Nile virus season. Niagara residents and visitors to the area are encouraged to take the following protective measures to avoid being bitten by mosquitoes. Wear long sleeve shirts, long pants, socks, and shoes when outdoors. And this also applies to the pesky little ticks that we are experiencing as well. Whenever you use mosquito repellent, apply a product containing DEET or Excedrin, and carefully read and follow the manufacturer's directions. Drain any areas of standing or stagnant water. Make sure all windows and doors in your home have screens. Again, this year, low-impact larvicides, methoprene, and BTI will be applied to areas on public property where mosquitoes are breeding and beginning at the end of May and monthly throughout the summer seasons. These include catch basins and other standing water sites that cannot be easily drained. In addition, 21 mosquito traps will be placed throughout the region to capture mosquitoes that will be tested for the virus. Summer festival launch. Tomorrow we'll be launching our summer festivals, announcing our entertainment lineup for Canal Days. Keep your eyes on the media for this exciting midday announcement. That's the extent of my comments. West Nile virus can be very serious, and it's incumbent on us all to take make attention to those factors that would deter, especially when you're dealing with children playing in the outdoors. At this time, the regional councillor has given us the regrets this evening, and we move on to councillors' items. Are there any issues, inquiries that members of councillors have on any issue, either previously up or currently up? Councillor Butters, were you waving at me?
No, but, well, I'm going to read it after Councillor Bodner.
Okay, Councillor Bodner, oh, so courteous. Councillor Bodner, I'm sorry I didn't see you well back of my head here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Butters. I'm sure you'll have more to say after this. A number of items tonight. First one, I guess, is our favorite subject, Pleasant Beach garbage and beach. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Hanson. Number of questions, so I'll just do them one at a time. Where did we leave the garbage enclosure that we're going to put down there? Where is that at as of this date? Have we got a spot? Have we got a time?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bodner. We met as a public meeting on May the 6th to present the findings of our ad hoc committee and recommendations on where the garbage enclosure was going to be placed on the Pleasant Beach Association property. Unfortunately, the options presented so far by the Pleasant Beach Waste Ad Hoc Committee have not been accepted by the residents. We came away from the public meeting with several suggestions from the residents out there on possible solutions. It remains for us to present some additional direction through staff and through the ward councillors, I believe, to come up with an additional solution. We haven't met again with the ad hoc committee. I scheduled a meeting on May the 15th. Unfortunately, we didn't have any quorum at the meeting to discuss moving forward with future direction, so that meeting is still pending. I don't know if council's pleasure might be whether to reconvene the ad hoc committee or simply to meet with senior staff and the ward councillors to try to come to some resolve on direction. So there it is. It sits. We're back to where we were last summer with the communal waste pile on Pleasant Beach Road. So that's where we sit with the Councillor Bonner.
Go ahead, Councillor Bonner.
Well, I think we certainly need to move this along. I think council's already put the money towards it. We had a plan for a size in the fenced area of the association. I don't know why that would change, and probably just take that and set it on city property at the end of Pleasant Beach Road. And I don't know how many more meetings we have to have on this before we say go ahead. Obviously, there's we should stake it out, I guess, so that everybody has whether it's Councillor Butters or I or the entire council wants to get together on this. I just think we need to move it ahead and get it set up. I was down there yesterday talking to a supervisor with the region who was going through the recycling and with gloves on for 2 hours because the recycling people will not pick up those bins because they're all contaminated. So all they do is tag them, and then the region has to come out and basically they go in the dump. But this is every Monday, 2 hours every time. This is crazy. We need to move this along very quickly. So I think I don't know how to do this. I'll let Ron speak on this further, but I think we just need to go ahead and do this. I think we've been through it. I don't know that we have to form that committee again. I think there was really good discussions for a lot of months on that. I think we, kind of got it down to where it'll be the best we can get. And I'd just like to see that move forward. Along with that, at least one of the residents was expressing when will they get their small recycling containers that we had talked about. I did talk to that regional supervisor, and they won't put those out until that enclosure is built. That was her take on it, and that was my understanding from those meetings too. But the other thing was this past weekend, very nice weekend for swimming and everything in that area. Take the garbage out of the picture. It's the people using the beach. we put up those nice tollway zones. People got rather creative and at least on one sign, if not more, took the tollway zone off the bottom of the no parking. So our staff, I believe, was out there and then cannot tow because the sign isn't there. If we put that sign back up, can we somehow grind that bolt round or something, or do some way to secure that part of the sign on there so that bylaw can actually enforce that? And the other thing, just on that, on the bylaw people, I'm sure hoping that they're not waiting for a call from the residents. Because this is such an issue we've talked about forever, I would expect on a nice warm weekend that bylaw should be out there on a regular basis, not just waiting for someone to call. So if that was somehow not communicated by council, I would like some direction from council tonight that just happens. You know, we just shouldn't wait till that. Can I put that to Mr. Aguilina to comment, if anything, on that?
Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Bonner, we were there all weekend. Staff were there both Saturday and Sunday.
Okay.
And we had issued 15 tickets and we towed away 6 vehicles. And as you mentioned, we need to have the sign up there. I know we put a service request to get the sign back because we need that sign in order for us to to tow away.
Okay.
We need the signage in place.
So, Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
just
go ahead.
to pick up on that, will we look at some way to secure that on there so people can't, if they indeed did take it off of there? Or we didn't just forget to put that one up, did we?
Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Bonner, we will ensure that through the 4.6 service request that city staff take a look at how to better secure it.
Okay. Great, thank you. Still on that aspect, people also got creative down there where there was no parking zone on the whole road. They took it upon themselves to park in the fire lanes. 6 cars in fire lane 22, I believe. So, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the chief maybe. Chief, can we put up, I know this is a subject that was been brought up before, to post fire route at the end of the fire lanes. And I know that you have to put a sign, I believe, every 50 feet down the fire lane on both sides. So that's a lot of signs and a lot of expense. Some people did not want that many signs on a fire lane. So I wonder, Chief, or whoever's going to look after this, can we post one at the end of each fire lane saying fire route? Do we say cars will be towed also if it's in a fire lane? And I know the chief will expand on who else may be caught up in all of that. But Mr. Mayor, through you.
Chief Perry, can you comment, please?
Your Worship, through yourself to Councillor Bodner and the remainder of council, the issue, as you alluded to briefly, was that when we posted them as fire routes or fire lanes a number of years ago, the residents made it very clear they didn't want sign pollution on the signs. Obviously, the problem that we're now experiencing wasn't as bad then as it is now, especially in that particular area. So the answer to your question is yes, you could, but it's not enforceable unless you post the signage as necessary. I believe that the number you alluded to at 50 feet is correct, which would mean we'd have to sign at both sides from one end to the other. Not to say that as a deterrent, we could post it at the end, but it's not enforceable. And secondly, I think council's already had a number of lessons with regards to how people behave in that particular area for the last year or so or more. But obviously we're open to trying that to see if it will help. But as far as expecting bylaw to go out and enforce it, it wouldn't be enforceable doing it in that manner. As I understand it anyway. Now I stand to be corrected, and perhaps Dan would like to address that, but I believe that's the nature of the beast. Sherry and I have had conversations about that in years past.
Okay. Any comment, Mr. Aquilina?
Through Mr. Mayor through you, Mr. Mayor, the signage needs to be in place for any ticketing to be given. So if there's no sign, there's no ticketing. towing. Need to have the signage.
Thank you. Mr. Bonder?
Sure. Also on that, we had talked about, actually, we had met Mr. Hanson on moving that sign that is partway down Pleasant Beach Road, telling people about Centennial Beach and Nickel Beach. And we're also going to put signs, I believe, at Shirkson Road in Pleasant Beach. And yes, Shirkson Road and Pleasant Beach, both coming, going out of there. Can you tell me where that's at? I was down there today. I didn't see any action, but.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, through you to Councillor Bonner, we actually have Newport signs, designing that sign itself. Okay. They're in the process. Once that's completed, they're looking to set up a new sign based on the locations that you mentioned. And we're in discussion whether or not operations staff can put up the sign or Newport Signs can put up the sign. And that's anticipated by next week to have the sign in place.
All right. Okay, I think that's it for me on that subject. Can I go on, Mr. Mayor, to another subject?
Please go on.
Grass cutting on Pinecrest Road. We had a delegation, Kathy Kalniak, concerned on Pleasant Beach Road, or sorry, on Pinecrest Road, Cedar Bay, and Weaver Road. We have a no-cut policy there for the monarch butterflies and some other bees and things. She was concerned that there was, well, there is flooding on her property, on her neighbor's property, and there was some concern that this not cutting was affecting their drainage. And I think it was just left like that. There was no direction given to staff, or really no more discussion happened that night on what we might do. And because this is a drain, Councilor Butters will probably want to chime in on this one, but you know, is the grass cutting on the side of the road affecting the drainage, or is it really the ditch bottom itself? And through you, Mr. Mayor, to Dan or Ron, when we do that grass cutting, do we mow the bottom of the ditch?
Mr. Hanson?
Through Mr. Mayor, Councillor Bodner, it depends on the width of the boulevard. There are mowers with a longer bar extension. We actually cut on both sides of the ditches on some. On others, where the ditch is quite close to the property line, we only cut up to the ditch itself and close to the ditch. We don't actually cut the bottom of the ditch. So it depends on the width of the boulevards. But you're correct in saying that there wasn't any additional direction given in terms of Pinecrest. There are no exemptions, as I understand it now, with the grass cutting. So the exemption for non-cut after the first cut would still be in place for the entire length of Pinecrest. That's been designated. So we would need some direction if that was to change for our contractor.
Okay, I'm going to leave that to Councillor Butters. I might chime in after she has a chance to. I've got some more, but should we flip right to that right now, or do you want to?
Well, why don't we deal with you and
okay.
Then we'll move
all right.
on.
Okay. Next one, Centennial Park. Got a call from one of the neighbors down there that was concerned that we seem to have left a lot of dead wood in the park, tree branches and items. I thought we had cleaned that up pretty well, but I wonder whether staff could check that out along the fence lines. You know, check those trees out. I know that's not something that's something we take very serious if there is dead wood in the park with any kind of branches that are dead, but I just wonder whether staff could really check that out. And there was also a safety concern. Of course, is that area, and boy, you think I'd know because I'm there all the time, is there speed signs on Vimy Road going into the park? I assume there is. And also, what happened was, and it happens all the time, when people are going to the park, if you're not familiar with it, parking is on one side of the road, the lake and park is on the other side of the road. So a lot of times people will simply pull on the side of the road before going into the parking lot, unload all of their beach stuff, and in this situation, somebody was going very fast, and a little girl, excited to get to the beach, got out of the car, and the person that was speeding had to make a very drastic move over on the side of the, the road. That being said, that could happen at any time, but I just wonder if we could look at that area, is there any way we could cross-hatch that road just to make, if it isn't that wide now, just look at the safety aspect of people crossing from the parking area to the beach, and just see if there's something that we haven't done that could be done. I guess I'm asking for kind of a staff report on that safety aspect of that crossing from the parking lot to the beach area, really. And that's all I have on that subject, but I got another one.
How many more do you have, Mr. Bud? I just want to...
One, Mr. Mayor, one.
Do we have a response to your last question?
Okay.
Mr. Hanson?
Mr. Mayor, we'll be happy, the staff will be happy to look into all these items raised by Councillor Bodner, come back with a report if necessary for the safety in the area. We'll bring that forward.
And your final comment or question, very briefly?
Sure. The break wall, where the lighthouses are. The St. Lawrence Seaway Management Corporation has limited public access to that, pretty much like they've done all along the canal. They allow the Friends of the Lighthouse group to take visitors out there to the lighthouse during canal days. For those, I think they allow them 4 days, that's it. There certainly is a demand for that lighthouse. They're a big deal from people coming. I know Friends of the Lighthouse actually have bus tours that come. They've booked one or more already for canal days. But it just seems that, a lot of us can remember where there was just free access out there. People would go out there at picnics and everything. Good fishing. And I know that, absolutely good fishing, yes. And fortunately, they have recently appointed Bruce Hodgson from St. Catherine's office to be the point person on this. Up till then, and I think the city has helped the Friends of the Lighthouse, they were dealing with someone in Quebec, actually, who suggested that maybe we'd consider moving those lighthouses onto land so we didn't impose on them and their breakwall. I don't think that's a very good idea, and I wondered if the city would consider starting some negotiations with Mr. Hodgson and just see if there's any way we can get Friends of the Port Colborne Lighthouse and to really be able to use that a little more. They got $5 million insurance. They've done everything that they have to. They won't allow people to walk from one lighthouse to the other anymore. That used to be a huge deal. Anyways, there really is, I'd like to see where we can go with this before we really give up on it. So I wondered whether council would consider directing Mr. Louie or staff of some kind to investigate this to see if we can get that. From a tourism perspective, the lighthouses are a big deal. They're people love to go out to that. So it's at a standstill, and 4 days a year just ain't cutting it. We really should have access to it. And I know for a while, I believe they allowed, if Friends of the Port Colborne Lighthouse gave them notice that they were going to bring a bus tour out there of 30, 35 people, that they were able to book that day, and they only allowed them, they had to tell them what hour they were going. But that seems to have ceased also, so I just would like to see that opened up. And also, the walk to the other lighthouse would be fabulous. And there's so many things out there that could be done. There's a tunnel, you know, from one lighthouse to the other, who they say is kind of haunted. Wouldn't that be an excursion? You know, people would come for that. Anyways, we need to get some shared ability to get out there and do that. So I just ask council if they consider directing staff to start those negotiations. And that's it, Mr. Mayor, for now anyways.
Thank you, Mr. Bodner, and thank Mrs. Butters for her patience allowing us.
Thank you, Mr.
Councilor
Mayor.
Butters, would you like to?
So I just want to follow up with a couple things that Councilor Bodner brought up. Are we agreed, or can we do like a council direction on getting the garbage enclosure built at the end of Pleasant Beach Road? Can we do that by council direction?
Or staff direction?
I mean, yes, staff direction. So.
Councilor, or Mr. Hanson, can we move forward with this? What are your concerns and how do we satisfy them?
Mr. Mayor, it's strictly up to council. If they choose to give us direction to put it there, we'll put it there. This suggestion was brought forward last year and was rejected at the time, being too close to the beach, that everybody at the beach would use this as a waste depository, and I don't think any of that has changed. So unfortunately, none of the other options have come to fruition. So it's up to council. If they direct that we put it there, we'll put it there, and we'll move on with it.
Well, the reason I'm suggesting it is because it was the only thing that the majority of the folks that were at the meeting could agree on, because it was withdrawn to have it on the lodge property because there was too much belly aching from certain quarters that it was too close to this or too close to that. So, you know, that was withdrawn. So this is what we're left with, because the status quo really isn't, it's not a good situation. So if the majority of the residents embraced that particular scenario, then to me, that's what we should be going forward with. And then the region can get the recycling things to the residents, and that can start to get rolled out in a better way as well. So that's what I'm asking for, is for council to agree to give staff that direction to proceed, along with, you know, whatever help they need from the regional side of this to make sure that it's, you know, appropriate for their needs to get the trucks in and stuff.
Okay, what I'm suggesting that we have a motion to depart from the rules of procedure, then have the motion that either one of you are calling for. But
okay,
could we just complete this item before we move on into that?
Could we? Yes.
Is everyone in agreement with that suggestion? Okay. Council Kane?
Well, do we have to have a mover and a seconder before I question? I just have a question. Sorry. Mr. Mayor, I just have a question. So this enclosure that was supposed to originally, just so clear, maybe Mr. Hanson, you can help me, was supposed to go into the property that belonged to the association. That's where originally we were going to put and then the association said, no, we don't want that there?
No, that's not what happened.
Okay, that's what I need to know. Okay, please.
Mr. Hanson, what's the position
Through you,
of the
Mayor Maloney,
association?
to Councillor Kenny. Originally, we brought a report forward to council which suggested 3 enclosures which would accommodate all of the fire lanes at the end of the fire lanes, and have 3 separate enclosures that would be collected by the region. This was rejected by the ad hoc committee as not being a good solution. We also had representatives of Pleasant Beach Association with the ad hoc committee. They offered to allow their property to be used for the enclosure. We met on site, had the enclosure laid out. We have an estimate for doing the work. We're lining the contractors up, went to the public meeting. The public didn't want the enclosure there. They said it was too close to the restaurant that's located there. So that was rejected. So we were back to square one at that point at the public meeting. The suggestion to put the enclosure at the end of Pleasant Beach Road next to the lodge was put forward last year. And that was rejected because people coming off the beach would use it as a depository for the garbage. So unfortunately, all these suggestions, there's no consensus. What come out of the meeting was a lot of suggestions, but no consensus on what should be done. So whether we, as I said, we reconvene the ad hoc committee and have the work councilors there and again try to get some additional direction, or have council give staff direction to simply build it in some other location. Unfortunately, the problem here is that Port Colborne does not own property other than the road lawn. So we don't have an ideal location that's away from businesses, away from the residents, and it's convenient for the residents to bring their waste out, especially the recycling, get it out to a proper location. So that's the dilemma we have right now. So unless we can acquire some property, and that was one of the suggestions that come out of the meeting, that the city try to acquire property somewhere along the road that would make a convenient location for the enclosure.
Councilor Kenny?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is there a cost? Like, what would be the cost? Just give me a ballpark. What would be the cost to acquire that property? To put a big recycling, garbage bin, what would be the cost?
Oh, through you, Mr.
I thought you told me we had some property out there one time.
No, we don't have any property. That's the problem. So we haven't got a price on property. It would have to be farmland or something vacant north of the Pleasant Beach area where there's vacant land. We don't have any other sites.
And then what Councillor Butters' suggestion is you're going to put it right on the road allowance going in? That road allowance, that's just a road allowance, is that where we're going to put it?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the suggestion was made that we put it on the Pleasant Beach road allowance. The enclosure was 12 feet by 36 feet total, which would have separate enclosures for waste and a separate portion for the recycling totes. And that's the size that's required for the 60 to 65 properties that are out there that are currently being serviced. So the suggestion was that it go beside the lodge, but on the city's road allowance, which is immediately at the end of the paved portion of the road allowance.
Right. And so would that take that whole road allowance in?
No, it would be simply on the west side of the road allowance.
Okay.
It wouldn't impede people going to the beach. There's still access to the beach area on the road allowance where the asphalt ends and the beach area starts.
Right.
There's a gate there.
And what would be the cost of this enclosure?
The enclosure was estimated at somewhere between $10,000 to $20,000.
Oh my God. And, you know, just say it's the high end, it's always the high end. You never heard anything be the 10, the low end. So are we going to be guaranteed then that this is going to satisfy the majority of the people out there? Because I don't want to be hearing this a year from now that it hasn't satisfied anyone. That would be my next question, after spending that kind of money.
Well, through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't know what kind of guarantee there would be, whether everybody was going to be satisfied. If there's continued illegal dumping at the enclosure, then there's going to be continuing problems with rodents and smells and everything else that is incurred with this type of enclosure. So I don't think there's a guarantee that anybody's going to be satisfied with this.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
On this subject, Madam Butters?
Well, Ron has technical for me, so you're just too old.
I don't think there's much appetite of City Council to wait much longer, if anything. We're on the summer season. To wait for this committee to be reconvened means the summer season will be here and gone. So I think we have to move forward in some way now. And is Councillor Bodner going to address that?
Mr. Mayor, through you to Councillor Kenny. This is not the perfect solution. The only perfect solution is to pick the garbage up in front of everybody's house and you look after your own mess. That isn't going to happen out there, the way the fire lanes are and everything. This is the best of a bad situation. I'd like you to drive down there on a Monday and just take a look at that pile of garbage and, yeah, and this isn't going to please everybody. It absolutely isn't. And you know what? It may be, it'll be better than what's there. People will continue to illegally dump garbage. It's a target. This will be enclosed. People would be encouraged, and I think we can work out a way. They only put it in there the night before, like Sunday night of the garbage pickup. That's the plan. Now, people coming off the beach certainly could see this and think, oh, well, we'll just throw the garbage beside it because it's garbage depot. That could happen. But you know what? What's there now, it's an embarrassment. I think the city's done, and the region has spent, our staff, the regional staff, the volunteers that are on that committee have spent countless hours on this thing. We could go for another year and still not come up with any consensus. Council's put the money aside in the budget, and I really think this is the best of a bad situation. And but I really think it'll be better than what's there. It won't be perfect, but it'll be better. So I would hope that we can direct staff to move ahead on this. I would volunteer to go out there with staff and look at siting on it, and invite any other councilors that might have an opinion on it. There's not much wiggle room out there. There's only basically, it should go here. But staff may have a comfort level if, some councilors were involved in actually the placement of it. So I just think we got to get at it. The mayor's right. We'll be talking about this in October,
Could I call for a motion to depart from the procedural bylaw, allowing us to deal with this issue?
I'll make a motion that the council allows us to deal with this issue and depart from the bylaw, if that's the right wording.
Are you content with that, Madam Clerk? Is there a seconder for that motion?
I will.
Seconder by Councilor Butters. Let's call for a vote. All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Now, would you like to make a motion to deal with a specific issue at hand, Mr. Bodner?
I would. I'd like council to direct staff to move ahead with this enclosure at a location determined by staff and whatever councilors want to get involved in it. And we just move ahead and get it done. Got the money.
Is there a second for that motion? Councilor Butters. Any discussion?
Timeline. Let's have a timeline. Again. Ron.
Yesterday.
As soon as practicable?
As soon as practical, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Any other questions on the motion? There being none, call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Councilor Butters.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have two more items. I want to go back to the Pinecrest issue. I did speak with the drainage superintendent, Henry Benamir, today. He did tell me that that area of the road is on the list for ditching in 2018. So that's good news there. One of the things is it's just so darn flat through there and a tremendous amount of water does come down through that system. We also talked a little bit about, like a future project of possibly reconstructing the drain, but that's like down the road. That's not anything imminent. There's a lot of other works that have to be completed before that's even, a twinkle in anybody's eye. But in terms of relief, that ditching is at least on the list for next year for that area. So that would be maybe helpful. He also talked about when the vegetation comes back, a lot of it's just perennial stuff. So when they ditch out, it's silt and he acknowledges that like big brush and tree kind of things impede water, but the normal vegetation that grows in the ditches really isn't that much of an impediment. It's the silt buildup that really slows things down and makes it crawl through a flat zone anyway. So I don't know if that's at all helpful. My last one is, just wanted to bring up through you to Mr. Aquilina, we're going to be having the site plan stuff come to do with Magnum Crane and the medical marijuana processing facility that is envisioned there. So I'm asking that it come to council because there was people in that neighborhood that wanted to be kept in that loop of information, especially, you know, on either side neighbors and across the road, like in close proximity. So I would like that to come to us so that those neighbors have a chance to kind of see what that looks like and comment if they need to.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Butters. Right now, staff are in the process of reviewing their proposed plans.
Okay.
And my expectation is once the comments have been completed by staff, they'll be then sent to the owner of the property to make those changes. At that time, I would like to then involve the residents.
Wonderful.
To let them know that it's going to be coming to council for consideration. Council at that time can then decide whether or not they want to be the approval authority or have me as the delegate approval authority confirm that the agreement is acceptable. So it'll be a matter of council's consideration once that comes to council.
Okay, so the residents will have another opportunity to see what's going on. That's great.
Absolutely.
Great.
And
Thank you.
Yeah.
Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have two items. They should be rather quick. The first one having to do with garbage trucks. I saw this last week in Niagara Falls. I was following a garbage truck and watched it have the side doors open, and every time it took a turn or a tilt in the highway, garbage fell out of the truck. And this morning I watched the same thing happen on Davis Street and Lewis Street and down Welland Street. The same things were happening. There was bits and pieces of garbage coming out of the sides of the truck, so we really need to get a hold of the company and let them know that they're not doing it correctly, because we can't have that happening. So if staff could take that on, Dan, would that be you?
Through Mr. Mayor, myself or Mr. Hanson.
Okay.
One of the two.
Thank you. That's the first item. The second item, I believe, does come to you, Dan, and it's about 15-minute parking restrictions on Mitchell Street. There are a couple of stalls in the block of Mitchell Street, west side of Mitchell Street, on the block between Nickel and DeQ. That particular area once held a bakery. For more than 10 years, there hasn't been a business there, but those 15-minute parking signs are still there, and it's actually a problem for some of the people in the neighborhood, and in particular for the French Golden Age Hall right next door. It takes up the parking that they would have available to them because they can't park legally for more than 15 minutes. So if we could get those signs taken out, that would be great. There's absolutely no purpose for having them there.
Dr. Land.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Desmarais. We can certainly take a look at that. There'll be obviously something that council will have to change the bylaw that regulates the 15-minute parking. Once council makes that bylaw amendment, then the signage can come down. So I would just ask for direction of council to look into that, to have a report to council.
Okay, so if we could make that direction to have Mr. Aquilina bring up a report, that would be great.
Okay, we need a motion, or can we just give verbal direction? Preferable by motion.
Okay.
Madam Mayor.
I will forward the motion to have Mr. Aquilina file a report on the Mitchell Street parking, 15-minute parking restrictions.
Seconder for the motion. Councilor Dance. Any further discussion? Call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. That's it. Any other councilors? Issues or inquiries? Councilor Dan.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Ron, just a couple things there. A little accident on Main Street there a few months ago. We still have a light pole missing. I just wonder if there's any idea when that might get replaced.
Dan.
Through Mr. Mayor, Councilor Danich, I'll follow up with council on that. It's going through a claims procedure right now. So I believe the light poles have to be ordered and so on and fixed. So let me follow up on that and get a proper timeline for you.
Okay. And just one other item. I just want to toot our horn a little bit there. Main Street, we put up 70 banners on all the poles. That was done through our Main Street BIA. There was no cost to the city. other than the installation that was done by Newport Signs, but I think it looks pretty good. I've had a couple feedbacks, and it's all been positive, and I hope that people enjoy them. We're hoping we're going to get a couple years out of the Canadian banners. The 150s will come down at the end of the year, and next year they'll be replaced with all Canada banners. So we'll have approximately 70 banners up for hopefully a couple years. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Any further councillor inquiries? Are there any responses of city staff to issues previously? Yes, Ms. Inez.
Good. Through you, Mr. Mayor, just a quick update on to let council know that our first water billing from a new financial system went out late last week, and so I know that customers are receiving their new water bills. So we are moving forward on the financial system, and it's it's coming along. We've had glitches here and there, but that's normal. And so the first water bills go out. I know that there was an issue, I think, with one of the banks in the city with regard to some customers going to the bank and wanting to either pay online or pay at the bank, and they somehow, I believe, at the bank's end there was an issue, or maybe an issue. We're working with through our bank, CIBC, who's working with the other banks to ensure that accounts can be paid either through their old accounts or with the new account going forward, and they're going to be switching, or the banks will actually be able to put new accounts in anybody that's paying online, so that they can automatically just make their payments. So that's in process right now. So the other item is that as of today, we are also printing our tax bills off the new financial system. So those will be going out most likely tomorrow. So that's, again, another big billing on the new financial system. Then we're moving forward onto payroll and some of their other modules. And staff are being trained almost daily on different items through the modules that we're going through. And but it is coming along, and hopefully will be completed and everything up and running hopefully by July or August is our goal. But I just want to let council know that if you do get anybody calling because they have a new look bill, they have a new look water bill and a tax bill, and we put a notice in with both the water bill and the tax bill, sort of trying to explain some different things about the new billings, and especially on the banking, that they really shouldn't have to do anything, that the banks are going to be doing it, but it may take a little bit of time for the transition to take place.
Thank you. Any questions of Mr. Sinnes? Yes, Mr. Bonner.
Yes, you forgot to send me a water bill, Peter. But do we have that on the city's website? Those explanations on anything? Is it highlighted on there?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes. The notice that has gone with the water bill and the tax bill is on the website.
Any other questions of Mr. Sinnes? Any other inquiries of staff or comments of staff? Yes. Steve Cartwright.
Your Worship, thank you very much. I'll try not to take as much time as somebody else in the room did, but we'll move forward. But a couple things. He's smiling back. That's a good sign, eh? I just want to let everybody know that Safety Day was a great success. We had great attendance. All kinds of kids were there, families, and it was a very, very well-attended event. I also would like to know, or let you know, probably most of you have seen in the paper, Jack O'Neill received provincial recognitions for fire safety. As well, if you recall, a young lady came here with regards to the poster contest. She was also a regional winner in the region as a whole. So they'll be coming back to council in the not too distant future. An update on the recruit process. Their final testing is this weekend. It's taking place in Fort Erie, all day Saturday, all day Sunday, and that's when they go into live fire for their first experiences. We're quite confident they're all going to get through. Another little item, the rural fire station. We had one open house held in Shirkston. There's another one planned for June the 22nd from 7 to 9, and June the 24th from 10 till noon that's a Saturday. They'll be held at the fire station here in the city, and notice is going out in Peter's new tax bills to all the residents in Ward 4, providing them with that information if they are interested. And once that is completed, I'll have a report to come back to council. I want to update you on a couple of things with regards to one, smoke alarms, and the other one is multi-residential buildings. We're struggling with the multi-residential buildings. We've got some property owners that are multiple, we have multiple issues over and over again. There's probably somewhere in the area of 25 charges going to be going out to individuals and be taken in provincial court with regards to the issues. It's very disconcerting to me that for whatever the reason, people just aren't getting the message, and when I tell you the next thing, you're going to understand even more so. I'll give you the latest up-to-date statistics that we have so far for this year. So far this year in 2017, that didn't really start till mid-February. We visited 507 homes. We've had refused entry 19 times. We've installed 326 smoke alarms, 76 carbon monoxide alarms, 120 combination alarms, and replaced 148 batteries. Right now, our percentage is at 30% compliance. Still not where we want to be, but we are continuing to push as hard as we can. The volunteers are in the rural area. The full-time guys are doing it. I've got them on a dreaded word, a quota system where they have to do so many each day, day and night. And we're trying to get through the entire city, but quite frankly, it's disappointing that people still haven't gotten the message for whatever the reason. People, all they got to do is phone the fire hall. We'll help you. We were successful, as you know, with a fire at a house. The gentleman he didn't get out of the house. Actually, somebody was working in the area. They heard the smoke alarm going off. Sorry, they saw the smoke coming out of the house. They went to the house, got him out of the house, and we'd found that he had taken the smoke alarm apart. So he was just recently found guilty in court and fined $2,000. So we need the cooperation of the public to help keep this community safe. So thank you very much.
Questions of the chief? No questions? Thank you, chief. Okay. I think it's time to move on to items requiring a separate discussion. Oh, before we move on to that, I guess there was one issue, roadside cutting. I don't believe we came to a conclusion with. It's on Pinecrest Road, Cedar Bay Road, and Weaver Road. Are you making a suggestion, Mr. Bodner?
Well, listening to the discussions, and Councillor Butters contacted the drainage superintendent. So I think the only thing that makes sense to me was that if the cutting was done in the bottom of the ditch, I can't see how not cutting the side affects the flow of water. I know there is a concern that when they finally do cut it, there's lots of grass that's left over on those roads just because it's allowed to grow so high. But Councillor Butters said that area is going to be clean next year. It's on the list. Yes, the dreaded list. So it will be looked at next year. So I don't know where to go with this. I mean, certainly the resident wants that area cut. Actually, the resident and her neighbor want that area cut. And I don't know what the feeling of council is or how we deal with two people that want an area cut on that road. It's just on Pinecrest Road, not the other three roads. It's only the two people that have a concern with flooding, and they feel that not cutting that area somehow affects their flooding. I don't get the sense from council that there's a lot of support for cutting that area along the side. If we don't do the ditch, I don't think there's any sense, you know, in pursuing this. I can't see where this is going to go, other than a no vote. I'll certainly report back to the people, and you know, I think we'll have to leave it at that.
Mr. Hampton, can you provide any direction under this awkward situation?
Well, Mr. Mayor, we're just following council direction. We've been instructed not to cut, so if we were to make exemptions somewhere along the 3 roads, it's probably going to open the door to other requests. I know what happens on some of the properties along there is that the residents do cut the grass on the bollards themselves if they wish to keep it shorter, and we don't have to do that either. So it's strictly a council's pleasure.
Mr. Bodner?
Yes. I think I'll leave that alone.
Okay.
I did think of one more thing on the Pleasant Beach area. And I just wonder, staff, because we own a few of those fire lanes, I think someone took it upon themselves to clean an area on one of the fire lanes that we own. Inadvertently made it look like a parking spot, I believe. Wonder if staff could just check that out and see. It appears to encourage people to park on that fire lane. They've cleared off the side. And I think they had good intentions. I don't know the reason. I haven't spoken to them, but I just wondered if staff could take a peek at that and just see if there's, any concern from a staff perspective on that one. Okay.
So on the Pinecrest Road, you're content that council will not revisit that issue at this time?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Moving on to items requiring separate discussion. Number 1 is Councilor Kenny.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Engineering and Operations Division Report number 2017-87, subject Drinking Water Quality Management System Management Review.
Is there a seconder for the recommendation? Councilor Butters. Discussion. Councilor Kenny.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to ask one question. It's on page 174, and it's under operational performance. And it says that the water purchases declined significantly in 2016 to the lowest total volume since 2007. There was a corresponding decline in metered sales. Now, I just want to know, perhaps Mr. Hanson could tell me, why was that decline as great as it was? If you could help me out, that would be great. That's the only question I have on that report.
See you, Mr. Mayor, to Councilor Kenny. There's been, for the last 10 years at least, a steady decline. It was approaching about 3% a year decline in water use generally right across the province. It's attributable to people wanting to control their bills to a certain degree. It's also attributable to low flow fixtures in homes. Newer homes are much more efficient in how they use water. So there's been a general decline all the way along. What this report addresses, and you'll see in the management minutes, is that we plan on taking an approach to try to track this trend now going forward with the new metering system that's now in place and the new monitoring tool that's in place with the zone meters. We want to be able to track this and see what the trends are in terms of flows right across the city. Because there isn't an easy answer. I think it's a combination of a lot of different things. But certainly the new water meters in place will capture a lot of the information we're looking for. So I think the plan is for Mrs. Sutter to bring a further report forward to council in terms of trends and what the new water meters are doing for the city in capturing that.
Thank you. Just to follow up, so she'll bring us a report since the new water meters went in to a certain point. Is that what we're expecting from her?
I think he's here for the development.
Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Kenny, I think it'll capture a number of things beyond that. That's one component. It's going to capture leakage within the systems, and we're getting a lot of requests now. If you follow the work order system, we get a lot of requests now with the new meters for high billing complaints. We're actually able to allow people to track their own usage and giving them the tools now to do that. So we can actually monitor the meters and be able to do that sort of thing. So we want to do a follow-up report to show the efficiency of the meters and and as well as the trends, as I talked about, trends of the water usage and where that's going with the city.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Next item is item number 3, Councillor Kenny. You pulled that one?
I did. Planning and Development.
Excuse me, Councillor Kenny, we gotta have a vote on your
sorry.
previous one. All those in favor of the recommendation of Mrs. Kenny? I'm sorry, Councillor? Item 1. All in favor, we got the motion. All those opposed, it's carried. Thank you. Item number 3.
Trying to rush things along there because we had a lot of yappers today. Anyway, Planning and Development, Economic Development Division Report number 2017-99, subject Regional Municipality of Niagara's proposed development charges bylaw.
Is there a seconder for the recommendation? Councillor Danch? Discussion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a big concern about this proposal by the region, and I can see our staff are concerned about the changes, and there's a table there that shows you how much the increase for apartments, just 4 bedrooms and over in the apartments, there's a percentage increase from the development of 462%. 462%. And I just think that it says on our options and financial considerations, it says do nothing, which I think, why would we sit here and do nothing and not say one word to the region about their proposed changes, which will affect us greatly. It's going to affect like residential development. When we lowered ours, the waiver was, we extended it. We have seen considerable growth in the last few years in residential with our businesses. We've seen those develop, increase their square footage, and that's all because there is no development charge. So the other option was council should choose to receive this report for information, and I think we should send a strong objection to the region, not just receive it for information, but it also says we could defer our decision and receive additional comment from the staff. So I'm okay with deferring it and getting additional comments from staff, but I think our staff have been pretty clear about this when I read that. And I just think that we shouldn't just let that fly by. I think we need to be very strong about our concerns about what that might do to our municipality. So, thank you.
Are you finished?
Unless somebody else has a comment, yeah.
Anyone else wish to discuss this? Comments? Evan, do you have a comment?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to council, perhaps my writing style isn't the most clear, but really options and financial considerations is a menu of options. The recommendation that staff is recommending is that council supports the City of Welland's report or supports the City of Welland's request for regional council to make changes to the proposed Region of Niagara development charges bylaw as outlined in the City of Welland's correspondence package dated May 10th, 2017 be supported, and subsequently that the Niagara Industrial Association's proposed or comments to the Niagara Region's proposed development charge bylaw also be supported. So the options are greater than just doing nothing or receiving the report for information, but there's action recommended. Thank you.
Any questions of Mr. Osh? Any further comments? Councillor Kenny.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And that's okay to support Welland's, but I just think we should send our own support as well. Again, it says that the bylaw proposed to only provide a 50% reduction of the applicable in the design community improvement plan areas. Currently, the region provides a 50% exemption, an additional 50% reduction if the proposal meets certain smart growth criteria. Well, I don't know. As long as we're sending it, in my opinion, I think we should be sending a strong message back that we're not in favor. If he just wants to be supporting Welland, that's fine, but I just think we should send one of our own as well. I think we should be in opposition of this.
Okay, we can, any further discussion? There,
But that's just me. I will make the motion then, sir, that we send, that we support then.
what do you want to endorse Wellens' position now
Right.
and then make a separate motion?
Correct.
Okay, so we have a recommendation on the floor, moved and seconded. No further discussion, I'll call for the vote in favor of that recommendation. All those in favor?
The recommendation is
To support the
Just-
one
report.
position.
one report.
Carried.
Thank you.
Now,
Would you make a note?
if you wish to make them a motion yourself.
I would need the word smithery of our clerk to,
The clerk has suggested that maybe in this case, a notice of motion would be appropriate.
Okay.
And we can do that.
oh, I will
Get
do
it
that
through
then.
for the next
For
cycle.
the next,
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next item is item number 5, Mr. Bodner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll try to be quicker than the chief was. Planning and Development Report number 2017-100, subject delegation of development agreement approval, that the bylaw attached to planning, oh, no, that's all I got to do. Sorry.
Seconder for the recommendation? Councillor Kenny? Any discussion? Councillor Bodner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Dan. Dan, so how will this change? I know how it'll change, but just wonder whether you could tell the public what happens now, and if we give you the sole authority, how will that change what happens now?
Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Bonner and to all of council, what this will do will speed up any sort of development applications, because typically a development agreement is a condition, and that condition normally comes by way of committee of adjustment. So those are actually brought forward to the committee for consideration. The committee knows what the issues are. We place that as a condition. So this would enable staff to continue drafting the agreement, but instead of writing a report and actually having council approve the development agreement, it would simply be a matter of me giving the authority to go ahead for the mayor and the clerk to sign it. It would expedite tremendously time that someone would have to wait. It'd be a lot quicker to allow development to proceed.
Mr. Bodner, go ahead.
Thank you. Face value, I think that's a really good idea for, development to go quicker. I guess where I have a problem, and having been involved in a few of these, like site plan approvals and development agreements, when it comes back to council, we kind of get a kick at the can. Under this proposed plan, then everything would be done at committee of adjustment, all right? That's where council would have a chance then to say what they wanted to see in that site plan, or be there to voice an opinion. Am I wrong on that? I'm thinking of a couple that we dealt with. I guess I'm just a little worried that, not that you wouldn't get everything in there, but where does the public then get another chance if they think something else should be in there, that the Committee of Adjustment said, okay, you got to do this and this. Then it comes to council in a report, and most times we just say, that's great, go. But what if there's a very contentious issue, and it kind of just gets rubber stamped, and most times I'm sure that would work. I'd just like to hear a little more Mr. Aguilina's opinion on that.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bonner. As I mentioned, the majority of these development agreements, the issues that are required have been provided by agencies. Those agencies comment on what they require on any development proceeding, and what we do is we report that to the Committee of Adjustment. The Committee of Adjustment knows what those issues are. We actually specify in the conditions of the committee that these are the issues that need to be resolved, and they hear from the agencies what those issues are. So if any individual property owner does not like the conditions that the Committee of Adjustment has put in place, they can appeal it. Simply put. So it would be something that the Committee of Adjustment, if they are uncomfortable with the conditions or anything in the agreement, they can refer it back to staff for more information, or they may simply disagree with one of the conditions of the agency that is requesting the conditions. So that is kind of the checks and balances, Councillor Bonner. So in order for it to go to council, so council would be undermining what the Committee of Adjustment has approved.
Mr. Bonner.
I think 99% of the time that would probably work okay. I guess I'm just thinking of site plan control, where a neighborhood may have a problem with a certain development, and then financially they may not be able to appeal it. Okay, let's go back. If a neighborhood wanted to appeal the decision after you've done it all, is there a cost to them, and who do they appeal to?
So, Mr. Mayor, presently right now to appeal it needs to go before the Ontario Municipal Board, and they now have a $300 fee to appeal the decision of the committee, whether it's for or against an application.
Plus legal counsel if they so wish.
Yes. Sure. So I don't know. I guess I'm looking for some thoughts from council on this. To, like I say, 99% of the time we don't even, I don't think we've really adjusted anything from what Dan's brought forward, but occasionally, and I can think of one, was the Reeb House. We had, we had neighbors that were concerned. I'm just wondering, they wouldn't get that kick at the can unless they want to go to the OMB, which is, onerous and scares a lot of people, and, so I guess I'm just not quite satisfied that the neighborhood for that 1% would be well served by simply turning this over. I don't know. I don't know. I just don't have a good feeling about this. Just from the neighborhood perspective, and maybe I'm out to lunch on this, but that's my thoughts on it. I'd just like to hear if anybody else has any.
For the discussion, Councilor Butters, Councilor Demerit.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Dan. The council still reserve the right to bring something back to this table if they follow through with this report. Do we still retain that right?
Through Mr. Mayor, to Councilor Butters, I would say yes, similar to what we do for site plan control. Council has delegated that, but at any opportunity, council wants to actually have that report before them, that agreement before them. So it's just a matter of a direction of council, and we will bring it back to council, like we've done for.
Would that address Councilor Bodner's concern of making sure that, Jack and Jill, John Q. Public have that opportunity within this chamber to speak and be heard?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councilor Butters, that would be an avenue to consider, absolutely.
Thanks.
There's another question over here.
No.
Councilor Demerit.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Aguilera. Dan, if we were to move forward with this, we'd only be shortcutting the process by, what, 2 weeks? Would that be about right? Because if something, is going to come to council, we meet basically every 2 weeks. Well, sometimes it stretches to 3, but that would be all we'd shortcut it by.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I would say on the safe side, a month, because we need to have reports in at a certain time to be able to be on the agenda. So I would say it would slow things down by about a month.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Bonder.
Thank you. So I trust Dan to he's not going to put through anything that is controversial or say there's a big uprising by people around. I just wonder how we could kind of ingrain that in this. Like, I wouldn't mind giving you to delegate the approval to you. But like Councillor Butter said, is there any way we can, hook you and pull you back if there's something that's really out there and you've had some kind of, hue and cry from the public on something? Can you give me some thoughts?
Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Bonner, I think what Councillor Butters had mentioned, it's simply a matter of a councillor bringing it to council. If they hear from the neighbors that they're unsatisfied with whatever that agreement is, it's a matter of the council member to address that to council and get the direction that'd be something that council considers for approval.
Any further discussion? Being none, call for the question. All those in favor of the recommendation? Hands up, please. 6-0. Carried. Item number 11, Councillor Kenny.
You were always going to pull that, didn't you? Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Town of Fort Erie re-Woodbine entertainment stall policy, that the resolution received from the Town of Fort Erie re-Woodbine entertainment stall policy be supported.
Seconder for the recommendation, Councillor Butters.
I love horses.
Any comments or questions? Councillor Kenny.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I brought this forward because I'm in total support of us and supporting Fort Erie's motion. But I had the opportunity actually today, just when I was working in Fort Erie, to meet one of the owners of horses. She came from, brought some horses down from Manitoulin Island, that's where they live, but they brought some thoroughbreds down to race, and she's very concerned herself, because what's happening, when you read the report, is that the operator of the Woodbine Horse Track has adopted a stall policy effective May 15th, 2017, that provides for the duration of an entire thoroughbred meeting of a typical racing season, no horse once boarded at Woodbine may leave Woodbine to race at another track. Now that, sir, is totally unacceptable to horse owners and stables in this area, and I think that it's very important that we do support this motion, and maybe send one of our own along with that letter of supporting Fort Erie's, because it's important. Prince of Wales is the always raced in Fort Erie, has for years, and it's the second crown in the Triple Crown of the Canadian Triple Crown anyway. And I just would like to see this council totally endorse and support this, and maybe put some word out there about that we want that same opportunity to have thoroughbred racing remain in Fort Erie.
Further comments or discussion? Councillor Bodnar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I certainly agree with that, and there is one thing in there that does say the new Woodbine policy is more about eliminating competition from Fort Erie than growing or supporting the horse racing industry in Ontario. So they're just trying to capture everything and force the horse owners to stay there, basically, and not move around. That Fort Erie racetrack is a good tourist attractor for our area. As well as entertainment for, a number of people. I got an uncle that goes there, and he, the horses actually send him a Christmas card every year because he keeps them in so much hay. But, besides that, I think it's a really good thing.
Thank you, Mr. Bodnar. Any further discussion? There being none, call for the question. All those in favor?
Yay!
Carried. Item number 21. Madam Kenny.
Okay, I just got to see if it's on here. Right?
No, it's on your page.
That's an addendum item.
I know. I'm trying to find it. Okay, thanks. Okay, does it say the item number, though?
21.
Has Mr. Patrick
Is he here?
Gagliardi
Is
come
he here?
into the chambers yet? Okay, he's not here.
Okay, just 1 second, sir. Just give me a minute. Okay, he's an event organizer in support of Community and Corporate Services, Community Services Division Report number 2017-101, subject Moonlight Flicks at H.H. Knoll Lakeview Park.
So seconder for the recommendation. Councilor Demery, discussion, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just brought that forward, hoping to get council's total unanimous support for this. I think it'll be great. It's entertainment for young people, and I was hoping he was here because I wanted to ask him the question if some of his group were going to help with garbage pickup. You know, help staff out by cleaning up themselves, and they would get community hours for that, but he's not here, so I can't ask him that. But I just hope that council will endorse this entrepreneur's idea to bring that to Port Colborne. I think it's great. Thank you.
Councilor Ryder.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to staff, who was looking after this? Peter? Peter, sorry, I can't find it right here, but I thought they alluded to the fact that there would be some tents set up for sponsors or whatever. Can you, 10 by 10 tents. Can you, have they told you what these tents are about or who's going to be there? Is it food tents? Is it, anyways?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. No, when I was talking to Mr. Gagliardi, it was tents that probably 3, maybe possibly 4, and it was 10 by 10 tents, and it's their sponsors that are just going to set up a table and to sort of promote the sponsors that are providing sort of the funding for the event, because there's no fee for the event, and it's just for people to come and provide food, canned food and that type of thing for Port Cares, for the food bank, and that's what they're going to be providing. And so the tents are basically just there for the promotion of the sponsors of the event. And then they're going to have some activities for kids until the show starts, or for people for the show before the show starts. And I would also say that when we talk to him tomorrow, we will also ask him about helping with making sure that everything in garbage is picked up and that the place is clean.
Ms. Bladner?
So when you're talking to them, can you get who's going to be in those tents?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would assume it's somebody we would want to be there, but what if it's an organization that we don't want to be there? I think we should know. I guess I would like to pass this on the condition that those people or those groups are acceptable to the City of Port Colborne staff. So,
I can do that, Mr. Mayor, yes.
Okay. Good, thank you, Mr. Bondey. Any other questions of council? There be none? Call for a vote in favor of the recommendation. Oppose the recommendation? It's carried. That would conclude the items for discussion. A notice is a motion. Madam Kenny, you have one on the bell and charges.
Yes, sir. I'm going to bring a notice of motion forward at our next meeting in regards to the regional development charges proposed increases.
Being in opposition to.
Opposition to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. There being no further business on the agenda, I call Mr. Bodner.
Just to Councillor Kenny. Councillor Kenny, will you make a recommendation on what you think those charges should be? Or are you going to, well, just...
Just a reduction from, Actually, I honestly think they should stay the course of what they are now.
Okay.
And not be increased, yeah.
Just so we had something to, okay, thanks.
At the region, it's a very contentious item, and most municipalities do not support the increases as
It's too much.
suggested by the region.
Said, who drank the Kool-Aid? 'Cause let me tell you.
Call for a motion of adjournment.
Give it to Andy Petrosky.
Councilor Danch, seconded by Councilor Doucette. The special meeting of council is now adjourned, and we will move on to regular meeting of council, following a committee of the whole meeting. So we call that to order. Are there any addendum items, Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, none this evening.
Entertain a motion to confirm the agenda. Councilor Kenny, Councilor Demery, second by Councilor Butters. All those in favor? Carried. Are there any disclosures of interest? There being none indicated, do we record that, please? Adoption of minutes of the regular meeting of council 14-17 held on May 23rd, 2017. I have a mover and a seconder. Mover, Councilor Bodnar. Seconder, Councilor Kenny. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Determination of items requiring separate discussion. There being none, I call for a motion to approve those items not requiring separate discussion. Moved by Councilor Doucette, seconded by Councilor Kenny. All those in favor? Carried.
We'll have to do that again.
Madam Clerk, do we have any proclamations?
No, right? That's it.
We have no proclamations. Thank you. Minutes of boards, commissions, and committees. Madam Clerk, would you read those out for me?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The minutes of the Port Colborne Active Transportation Advisory Committee meeting of May 1st and May 5th, 2017, and the minutes of the Port Colborne Economic Development Advisory Committee meeting of May 4th, 2017.
Can I call for a motion to approve those minutes as indicated? Moved by Councilor Bodnar, seconded by Councilor Butters. All those in favor? Carried. Are there any bylaws, Madam Clerk?
Thank you, and yes, Mr. Mayor, that the following bylaws be enacted and passed. Bylaw 64835017, being a bylaw to authorize entering into a lease agreement with Showboat Festival Theater. Bylaw 64845117, being a bylaw to authorize entering into a bulk water sales agreement. Bylaw 64855217, being a bylaw to authorize entering into a development agreement for the property municipally known as 742 Pleasant Beach Road. Bylaw 64865317, being a bylaw to delegate authority to the Director of Planning and Development for the approval of development agreements. And finally, bylaw 64875417, being a bylaw to adopt, ratify, and confirm the proceedings of the council at its meeting June 12, 2017.
Thank you. Could we call for a motion to approve those bylaws? Moved by Councilor Butters, seconded by Councilor Demery. All those in favor? Opposed? They're carried. At this point in the agenda, there's a suggestion that we move into a closed session. We already addressed this issue prior to the beginning of the meeting in another closed session, Mary, so we wouldn't have to do it twice. So we'll move on to, I guess, just adjournment. Councilor Danch, are you going to move? Seconder? Councilor Butters. Thank you very much. Meeting's adjourned.